Good morning, everybody, and welcome to GP Strategies Assessment Services webinar, giving updates on the Operations or Departmental Manager new assessment plan. My name's Nikki. I'm going to be your presenter for today's event, but before we get started, I'll just go over a few housekeeping items, if that's okay. Firstly, everyone's phone lines have been placed in listen-only mode, so we don't get any background noise or any interruptions. If you do have any questions during the presentation, please do submit them through the Q&A. Finding the right-hand side, you'll see there that you can submit your questions. There will be time during the presentation for you to ask questions, and there will also be time at the end, but please do ask as many questions as you need. We want to make sure that everybody understands this new plan. And also, finally, the slides and the recording of the webinar will be sent out to you all, will be emailed after the event today. So apologies if you did have problems getting on. I think a few people have, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but welcome. I'm just going to pop my camera on so you can see me, that I am a real person. So good morning. And so like I say, this is the Operations or Departmental Manager Assessment Plan. Now we're looking at Assessment Plan 4. I think in the invite it said Assessment Plan 3, there has been a change again. This is from the, well, January, this one actually came out. And the changes is it's Operations or Departmental Manager now instead of Operations and Departmental Manager. So just to add confusion to resolve that a little bit more, but it will be the Assessment Plan 4. And if you've got any questions around there, just to add them into the question box. So today we're going to be looking at just a summary of the assessment plan, an overview of the standard. We're going to have a countdown to Gateway. I'm going to give you an example of a timeline because I've been asked quite a lot of questions about how you can plan and prepare your apprentices, especially around the project, and how we can really look at how you can be planning and what that timeline would look like. So we're going to go through that. We'll look at the professional discussion element of the EPA, the project proposal and presentation, which I think, again, after discussing with a few people, is the hot topic. And we're going to look at the resources available, and we can then round up with any final questions. But again, please do ask questions as we go along. That is not a problem. I'd rather you ask as we go through while it's on your mind. Okay, so the new assessment plan, it is for new starts from the 21st of October 2020. So any dates on the ILR from the 21st of October, that is when the apprentice will be working to the new assessment plan. Okay, so what we've got there, they're saying on programme is typically 30 months, but again, it's down to you guys. How you plan your times. We all know it's got to be a minimum of the 12 months and a day, but you need to just think about how what evidence needs to be collected and what decent timeline that you think would be suitable for your apprentices. So as we know, it's all about training to develop the occupational standards. It's all around the knowledge, skills and behaviours, whilst on programme working towards the English and maths. And also on programme, as this new assessment plan, there is the portfolio of evidence to pull together. Once your apprentice is ready for Gateway, it's all about, is the employer satisfied that the apprentice is working at that level? And that's when that declaration form is completed, that three-way Gateway meeting, where everybody is actually agreeing that the on-programme has been met and that apprentice is now ready to move into endpoint assessment. The apprentices must have achieved their English and Maths at level 2. And also at Gateway, you must be submitting to your endpoint assessment organisation the portfolio of evidence, because that will underpin the professional discussion, and a project proposal, and that's a subject, title and scope. And that is to be agreed between the employer and the EPA at Gateway. So that has to be signed off. But again, I will be going into that in more detail. 2 assessment methods for this assessment plan compared to the 5 that was in the assessment plan 2. So we have here a professional discussion, as previously mentioned, underpinned by a portfolio of evidence. That's your assessment method 1. And the assessment method 2 is the project proposal, presentation and questioning. Now, both of these assessments do have a grade, so they're fail, pass or distinction, whereas the previous assessment plan, or the one that we're working on at the moment prior to the 21st of October, is they have to, it's a pass for both, for all of the methods of endpoint assessment, but here they are actually graded, and then of course the overall grade, which again is the fail, pass or distinction. So the length of the EPA period, in the assessment plan it says to typically last for 5 months, and I will explain that in a little bit more detail later on. And that's actually when all gateway requirements has been met, and we've actually signed it off as the EPAO to say that yes, that apprentice is EPA ready. The assessments can be delivered in any order, and the result of one assessment method does not need to be known before starting the next one. So it's not like where the knowledge test has got to be passed before moving on to the other method. So again, in your planning, try and think about which one is better to be delivered first. And the key to all standards, as we all know, and I'm not teaching granny to suck eggs, but I like to keep going on, is the assessment plan. The assessment plan is the key to planning and success in all standards, but especially these ones now that they are getting meatier. There is lots of information in them, but the apprentice, the employer, yourselves, all have that copy of that assessment plan to actually guide you and help you as you're planning your delivery from programme, and like I say, ready for the endpoint assessment. So again, just a quick overview. We have the version 4 for all new starts from the 21st of October, the typical duration, which I've already mentioned. The funding band is now 7,000, and there's a portfolio collation for on programme, and then the 2 assessment methods there for endpoint assessment, professional discussion and project proposal and presentation with the questioning. We have countdown to gateway there, so we ask that apprentices are registered with ourselves as the EPAO at least 3 months prior to assessment. The system that we use is ACE 360, and that's our system for all registrations and all EPA activity. So the next one is gateway. The learner passes through the gateway process, and all appropriate documents to do with gateway are then uploaded. Once the learner passes through gateway, we will then go to booking the endpoint assessment, and all this will be in line with the assessment plan, because there are timelines to consider once the apprentice has passed through gateway around what dates we can actually then book in. So the independent assessor will deliver the endpoint assessment, again in accordance with the assessment plan. The results are all uploaded into ACE 360, and then they will go through our internal quality assurance check. Notification of results will come then out within 5 days, and then there's the external management and quality assurance of EPA, which is through the external quality assurers. So we go through that process as well. So this is the timeline that I wanted to talk about, and it'd be good to get your feedback. So if you wanted to pop anything into the chat box, that would be great. So I've just worked out here an example of a timeline. So if we're looking overall 24 months on programme, and that is including the EPA. So I've worked it out as a 19-month on programme, and then that 5 months that you try and build in for your endpoint assessment. So what we've got here, your 24-month programme, achieve all on-programme requirements along with the collating the evidence, the portfolio evidence, and they're asking in the assessment plan for that to be around 20 pieces. Okay, so that will be between month 1 and month 19. That's what you'll be doing, as well as achieving the maths and English if not already achieved. From month 17, really start to think about, with your apprentices and the employers, planning that proposal, that project proposal. What is that project going to be about? because at Gateway, that's when you'll be needing to put in the scope of the project. So that gives what I would say there 2 months to actually think about what that project is going to be about and the scope of the project. Okay. So aim to be at Gateway by month 19. So like I say, if you start plan at 17, that gives you Gateway at month 19. So the evidence for Gateway, level 2 maths, level 2 English, we all know that. The portfolio of evidence, along with the portfolio tracker, which we will provide as a resource, and that will show clearly that the apprentice has mapped their portfolio evidence to the correct knowledge, skills and behaviours as set out in the assessment plan. And then this is where the scope of the project will be uploaded. So it's a scope of at least 500 words. And it's got to be agreed by the employer and that they've confirmed that the project has a business benefit. That's really, really important. And again, there's a resource that GPSAS will provide that will be a scope project report. So it can be completed and it will just remind you of what needs to be covered within that particular scope. But what we will be doing then at Gateway is the independent assessor will check that evidence and look at that 500 words, look at the scope, look at the title and say, actually, is that apprentice able to meet the KSBs as set out in the plan? That will be then either signed off and the independent assessor will feed back and you'll get a form back to say, yes, please go ahead and just any extra information that may help. Or if it's a no, we don't feel that the knowledge, skills and behaviours are going to be met, then again, that will be discussed with the employee apprentice and the provider. Okay. Is there any questions around just those two parts before I move on? As an endpoint assessment organisation, we can't support individual apprentices' scopes prior to Gateway because we have to be kept separate. There would be a conflict of interest. We can help support as generic, so we can say, yes, if you were looking at these 3 or 4 different subjects for the proposal, that could work, but we can't comment on any individual apprentice's scope or title until it's actually been at Gateway. Okay. So then, as the assessment plan states, plan in 5 months for the endpoint assessment to take place. Now, there's a reason. There is a reason there, and that is because in case there's a retake. Okay, so the portfolio submission, so we have 3 weeks notice for the endpoint assessment, and that is because there's 1 week for the independent assessor to actually check the portfolio, plan that professional discussion around the evidence that's submitted, and then we have to give the apprentice 2 weeks notice for that professional discussion to then be booked and take place. Okay. The project proposal scope signed off at Gateway by the independent assessor. Once that has been signed off and you've got the form to say that that's been signed off, then it's then 12 weeks for the apprentice to prepare their full project and presentation. Now, I'm going to be very technical here because I think I've got a question. Bear with me. Let's have a look here. Okay, so Nicola, thank you for your question. So within the whole programme, will 2 projects be needed, one on programme and another for endpoint assessment? No, apologies if I've confused. So what there is at the initial stage, there's the project proposal, which is the scope, the title and the scope, which is that 500 words, and that is going to be saying, right, this is what the apprentice is going to be would like to work on their full project. What will happen then once that's signed off, that scope will then move into the full project. So it's like in 2 stages, I think. So it's saying, right, this is the title of my project. I'm going to be looking at training within the organisation, and this is sort of the scope that I'm going to be working towards. And then once that's been signed off, that title and scope is then moved within the overall proposal and presentation. Nicola, let me know if that doesn't answer your question. I'm hoping it does, because I know this bit is the key part around people's questions. So yes, please do let me know if there's anything further I can help with on that one. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't. Have I confused you, Nicola? Sorry. I'll see what comes back. Nicola, please do type in, or I can take you off your mute if you wanted to ask another question. I'll just move on, and I'll just keep an eye on that. So what we've got here is gateway evidence, again, level 2 maths and English, portfolio, and like I say, that project title and scope. Then you've got your portfolio, professional discussion. That's 5 days for the endpoint assessor to actually check the evidence and plan their professional discussion, and the 2 weeks notice for the apprentice to actually sit their PD. And then the project, 12 weeks to submit the full proposal and the presentation. And then there's going to be 2 weeks on top of that for the independent assessor to review and book the assessment. So again, a very clear timeline, but some good planning is going to be needed to make sure that all those timelines are clearly met. So that's why I thought it'd be a good idea just to put that idea down with the 19 months and then the 5 months. So I'm hoping that makes sense to everybody. Again, please do feel free to ask questions. So let's just look at the endpoint assessment method 1, which is the professional discussion, and that is, as previously mentioned, underpinned by the portfolio. We're all used to this. It's in quite a few of the assessment plans. The PD must last at least 60 minutes. The independent assessor, as mentioned, will have 5 days to review the portfolio. 2 weeks notice, as previously mentioned, given to the apprentice for the professional discussion to take place. A minimum of 6 questions will be asked to join that professional discussion, and that will make sure that we're covering the KSBs as set out in the plan. We do offer remote or face-to-face, apologies, for the assessments. We do always offer remote first. And as we always know, it has to be a room free from distraction. We have to be able to do the 360-degree check and make sure that they're actually on their own. It has to be in exam conditions, and the grading, as previously mentioned, is a fail, pass or distinction. I'm just going to go back to another question, if that's all right, guys, just why it's hot, because I think it's about this project. So another EPAO said you need to do a project as part of the on-programme phase to show all the KSBs covered on programme before Gateway, then another final project for EPA. By all means, take me off mute to chat if that helps. Thanks, Nicola. I'm hoping that is Nicola. Yes. No, that is not what the assessment plan is saying. It's the on programme is the scope, and then once we've signed off the scope, the apprentice is then being asked to go in to a fuller project. So what I'm going to do, Nicola, I'm going to take you off mute. Just hi, Nicola. Do you want to see if you can talk to me? No. Danielle, can we get Nicola off mute so it works, or?
Yeah, she should be off mute now. She'll be able to speak.
Okay, I've done that right, have I?
Yeah, no, it's all right. I don't know if you've got your microphone turned on, Nicola.
Try again. Hi, Nicola. No? Okay, I'll take you off mute if you want to come back on. There was another chat from, so on the assessment plan, the two sections, planning their project proposal and delivery of their project proposal, are these assessed as part of the EPA only, or does it need to be evidence within the portfolio? No, so they're completely separate, so that's a really good question. So the planning of the project proposal and the delivery of their project proposal is the endpoint assessment method 2. The portfolio is assessment method 1, linking to the professional discussion. Okay, so look at it as two completely different. You've got method 1, the collecting the portfolio, and that will then lead into a professional discussion. And linking to the KSBs as set out in the assessment plan. And then the other part, so that is a two-part method. So these they're classing it as a two-part method, even though it's method 2, 2 components. First component is pull together their project proposal, which is just their mini scope. And once that's been signed off, that will then go into the main overall project. So the actual proposal won't get a grade because it's their full proposal and their presentation which will get the grade, but it's the actual scope of the project proposal that will then say a yes or a no moving on to the next stage. Jane, I'm hoping that makes sense, but again, please do come back to me because I want to make sure we can get this right for everybody. Before we finish today, so thank you for that. Oh, shall we try Nicola again? Nicola, can you just try again, see if you can talk to us? No. Okay. I can always catch up with you afterwards, Nicola, but again, please do type in if you need anything else. So moving on to the portfolio, what does it look like? So compiling portfolio of evidence, we're asking for it to be submitted at Gateway along with the mapped document, so that, like I said, there'll be a mapping document that says all these knowledge, skills and behaviours need to have been met through the portfolio, and they can tick and say yes, that's what's actually been done. Like I say, we have an evidence tracker template resource that can be used. 20 discrete pieces of evidence they're asking for. So it's all about the quality of the evidence, not the quantity of the evidence. And you'll see there that it's asking for written accounts by the apprentice, witness testimonies. So it's direct observation, not opinions, direct observation of seeing the apprentice do something, workplace documents, recordings, screenshots, written account, anything like that. So again, I think the portfolio part is fairly straightforward, but that will then lead into that professional discussion. So let's just go to this endpoint assessment method 2. So project proposal, presentation and questioning, 2 components. Component 1, proposal, title and scope, no more than 500 words. That is then signed off, and we move then into the component 2, which is the full proposal. So, like I say, that scope of the proposal is put forward. That is signed off as an agreed. It's not assessed, it's not graded, but it will be yes, you can move ahead, which will then go into the full proposal, presentation and questioning, which is the part that will be graded. So hopefully that does make sense to you guys. Again, do let me know. Proposal with title and scope submitted at Gateway, signed off by GPSAS, and then the maximum duration for that project to take place is 12 weeks. And they're looking at 4,000 words plus or minus 10%. The presentation, delivery and questioning is 60 minutes all in all. 20 minutes for the apprentice to present to the independent assessor, and then there's 40 minutes of questions. The maximum, like I say, is 12 weeks for that apprentice to prep and submit, and then there'll be 2 weeks notice of the booking by us to the apprentice, the employer and yourselves. And again, we've got that fail, pass or distinction there. So project proposal designed to demonstrate the application of the KSB as they occur in occupational practice. The proposal must have a real business benefit and agreed by the employer. We know that. So the project proposal may be based on any of the following: the need to review and implement a change plan to improve efficiency, a continuous improvement review of a current process, service, product to ensure it's still fit for purpose, or the need to implement a direct saving across the team. That list is not exhaustive. They can go with anything, but it's got to have a business benefit, and it's got to make sure that it's going to cover those knowledge, skills and behaviours. So that's the sort of details for that proposal. I've called it stage 1. Again, I'm not going to go into that. I think I've done that to death now, but you've got 14 to 16 weeks following sign off for the EPA delivery. Title and scope, you've got the 500, 12 weeks then given for the presentation and proposal to be completed. So the project proposal, like I say, is looking at 4,000 words, plus or minus 10%, including graphs, tables, figures, but excluding the references and the annexes that they'll put in. So there's 12 weeks then to write and submit the full proposal and the presentation following that sign off of the initial scope. Now you'll see there that I've put all the different areas, what needs to be included within that full proposal. So just start on the right hand side there, executive summary, that's the first bubble, that's what they need to be talking about. Moving through, introduction. Again, I'm not teaching Granny to suck eggs. We know about writing a full proposal and strategy. It's all there. So again, you've got the scope of the proposed project, the objectives, all the way round into their recommendations and conclusions. So again, that's taken from the assessment plan, but that is a clear indication, a clear list of what they need to be covering when they're writing their project and when they're writing their presentation. The project proposal must include an annex showing how the project proposal maps to all the KSBs that are being assessed by this method. We will have that resource for you to show that. The project proposal must be submitted with relevant materials at Gateway. Okay. It must have verification from the apprentice and the employer that the submitted proposal is the apprentice's own work. It needs to be authenticated. Again, we know that. The project proposal does not need to be fully implemented during the EPA period. So it doesn't have to be something that's completely finished, implemented, done and dusted. Okay, it's just something that they need to have done everything that's covered on that original, the bubble slide as I call it, but it doesn't have to have been implemented. The implementation must begin during the EPA period, so it has to have been started, and you'll see there that I've put like S1.2, S2.1, 2.2, 3.3, that must be in there, can be assessed and progress against these skills, and must be discussed during the presentation. So that's around, and I've just pulled it out of the assessment plan actually, so it's around support, manage, communicate, change, overcoming barriers, plan and organise the resources that they're going to need, monitor process, mitigate risk, and about managing and monitoring budgets. So again, what you would expect to see within a full project proposal. The presentation should be submitted at the same time as the proposal. So again, once after that 12 weeks, that's what we would be expecting to see, that full proposal and the presentation. And the presentation will need to focus on the project proposal, and that's the areas that it needs to be covering. I'm not going to read them out, but they're quite clearly there. And again, pretty much what I just mentioned a minute ago. So when they're writing their slides, they're the sort of areas that they need to be covering. Okay. These are resources that we'll have available. Assessment plans. You know, they've got to be the Bibles, copies given at the start of their apprenticeship journey, and they really do understand how the assessment plan fits into what they're doing. GPSAS have sector or standard specific gateway declaration and checklists. So again, it's very, very clear what is needed at that gateway. So when you're having your gateway meeting with the employer and the apprentice, again, it's clear what's needed. Presentation topics, so we're giving you some ideas around what could be completed. A mapping guide, so we have the mapping for the project. You'll also see there is a portfolio mapping guide. Toolkits, so we'll have toolkits available. 2 toolkits, there will be on programme specification and guidance toolkits for on programme assessors and employers. And that will really talk you through the assessment plan in a smaller abridged version, and that will sort of like give handy tips on how you can also prepare your apprentices for the endpoint assessment. And there's also going to be apprentice toolkits which will welcome them to their apprenticeship journey, talk about what is on programme, what is endpoint assessment, what's the difference between the two, why is it like that, and again giving them some handy tips on how they can prepare for their endpoint assessment. There's the grading rationale and the user support for the systems that we use, which previously mentioned earlier is the ACE 360 system. Okay, I feel like I've covered a lot there, and I know we're sort of like nearly an hour, 30 minutes. So are there any further questions? I'm always happy to pick up as a one-on-one if that's needed, or anything else that you might need. But just ask if there's anything else from anybody. Here we go. Does the portfolio have to cover all the KSBs in the standard, or just the ones covered by assessment method 1? Yeah, it's the ones that are just covered by the assessment method 1. So on the resource that we have, there's the mapping document. It will say each of the knowledge, skills and behaviours that's needed just for that method, and so you can use it along with your apprentice as a clear guide to say, right, where does that portfolio actually fit? Does it map against these? And you can do it as a cross check to make sure they're all covered. But it's just for that method 1. So thanks for that question. There. Does anybody else have any other questions, concerns? I've got another one here. Let me just bear with me. Okay, can you confirm project management, finance and decision making will not be expected to be seen as evidence in portfolio or part of discussion? That is a very, very good question. Let me just quickly. I'm going to quickly look at the assessment plan. So for the professional discussion, so for the portfolio, we're looking at operational management, leading people, managing people, building relationships, the communication, the self-awareness, operational management. So there is a creation and delivery of operational plans within the skills. And there's the usual behaviours that we have on there. Just 2 seconds, guys, won't be a minute. So what was the question? Yeah, project management, finance and decision making. No, that isn't in the portfolio. So Jane, I hope that helps you on that one there. That would be covering under the project, so the assessment method 2. You're very welcome. Any other questions at all? I hope you found it useful, and I really do hope I've made it as clear as I can. I can understand that there's some people that are very nervous around delivering with this assessment plan, but you know, it's really going back to your basics. It's a level 5. You know, it's really making sure that that apprentice is in that right role when you're signing them up, and using that assessment plan at the very beginning. You know, it's part of your skills scanning. Can they actually meet? We can all meet the on programme. It's meeting that endpoint assessment and being able to carry out that whole project. I don't think the project is as scary as everybody first thought. It's just like you say, it's about the planning, it's about breaking it down. So I don't think there's any more questions coming in. Danielle, can you see any that I haven't covered?
No, you've addressed them all.
Yeah, I've addressed them all. That's great. Guys, I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If there's anything else that GPSAS can help with, please do get in touch. The recording of the webinar and the slides will be sent out, like I say, following this. Within 24 hours, we try and get them out to you. But if there is anything, once you get the slides, if you go back, speak to your teams, and you want anything clarifying, then please do come back to me. I'm more than happy, like I say, to take one-on-one questions with you, or even do bespoke webinars for your teams if that would help. But I'm going to let you go. Enjoy your day. Look after yourselves, and hopefully we can all catch up soon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.